just a bit of introduction. My name is Kipkemoi Arap Kirui. You can call me Arap Kirui. I'm currently the director in charge of legislative and procedural services in the National Assembly of Kenya. The National Assembly is one of the other houses, actually the lower house of the Parliament of Kenya. We have the Senate with about 67 members and 349 for the National Assembly. The institution of Parliament, just to maybe keep you up to speed, the institution of Parliament in Kenya is fairly independent compared to parliaments in the region. It's independent, it's autonomous, it has a very strong committee system. It's a budget-making parliament, and so a lot of the decisions relating to budgeting come from Parliament and not necessarily from the executive. So it's fairly a highly influential legislative assembly. And also, there is a lot of public engagement and participation in parliamentary processes. This is a country with a constitution that ensures that everything has to have public participation. Article 118 of the Constitution does provide for constant participation of the people in an involvement in legislative processes at every stage, whether, in fact, at the level of first reading of a bill, when the bill is taken to the committee, to the portfolio committees for consideration, there is a requirement by the Constitution that a bill would have to have adequate participation of the people. And in fact, the law provides for adequate participation. So when the participation is not adequate, we have had situations where the courts of law have actually nullified acts of parliament, and we started all over again. Very, very, very many acts of parliament have been nullified by courts of law because of that. So it's a highly participatory system that we have here. The level of engagement is really, really good in budget processes, in public hearings on confirmations of people to public offices at different levels, participation in lawmaking, participation in literally everything that Parliament does. I thought I should mention that about our Parliament, just a little bit of information about how the institution works. And we are trying the last 10 years, so to speak, actually call it 15 years, transitioning to kind of an e-parliament. And when you look at our Parliamentary Service Commission strategic plan 2019 to 2030, there's a lot of good focus on transitioning to an e-parliament, leveraging on ICT, automating legislative and other services through putting in place systems that will kind of improve on what you would consider to be better turnaround, efficiency, and we are trying to do that. We've been trying to do that the last 10 years. Last 5 years, there's been a lot of conversation around automation of legislative workflow processes, and that is what we are doing currently. I'll be speaking about it. Our core strategic objectives, in fact, I just decided to isolate about 3 of them within our strategic plan. Objective number 9, which is talking about enhancing our HR management and business processes for efficient delivery. That's for human resource. And objective number 12, which is automating parliamentary business and operations. And this is an area I'm very, very keen myself. And objective number 13, which is on enhancing ICT usage in legislative and business processes. I thought I should bring that also to the conversation. There is also provision for public engagement and access to information. We have under Article 35 of the Constitution and also an access to information law that is fairly vibrant. We are also trying as much as possible to reach out to the public through the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit, which broadcasts. We intend to do it 24 hours, by, providing additional content, digital content, and ensuring that there is a lot of information on Parliament that is going to the public. But currently, it is only when the House is sitting that we are broadcasting our proceedings. We also have a very strong social media and digital platforms engagement with the public, highly participatory. I know you are aware about what happened in 2020 2024, when we had this surge into parliament by the youth, that almost caused a nightmare to all of us here in parliament. And it was because of too much citizen awareness and participation. And they were not very happy about the contents of a finance bill that was enacted by the National Assembly. And there was a huge protest and a raiding on the Parliament of Kenya buildings. And we have since learned lessons that it is important to engage the public and ensure that at all times they are on top of things about what is going on in Parliament, and particularly for the public to help in decision making. We are trying to bridge the gap between the legislature and the citizenry. This is ongoing work. I have been involved in a lot of this. We are a bilingual legislature, yet Kiswahili as the second language is not very well developed. So I've been involved in ensuring that the language that is widely spoken across the country becomes part of the language and the documents that are being used in Parliament. And it has been important for us to translate documents, interpret what is going on in the national legislature, and to make sure that the public is participating effectively. And on aspects relating to automation of legislative processes, we have a few systems that are beginning to take shape. The e-chamber system has helped us to kind of implement electronic tools to facilitate paperless proceedings. That we have succeeded. So it's completely paperless. We have a digital Hansard system that is also helping us with transcription. It is still work in progress. It's not very perfect. We don't yet have an AI system to back it up. But it is extremely useful, the digital Hansard system, because we turn it around within 24 hours and we have, already Hansard well proofread, ready for public use if they want to use it. The work that I'm currently involved in, I'll be speaking to it towards the end of this conversation, is about putting in place a legislative information management system to develop a core system to automate the legislative cycle, particularly for all the stages of bills. I'll be speaking to it towards the end of this conversation. We have also been considering a digital workflow integration to ensure that there is a seamless movement of documents and tasks within the system, and also conversations around standards that are universally acceptable and easy to interoperate. And this, I think, is the area that is your expertise here. So the Clerk of the National Assembly test set up a task force, which I chair. We have about nine other members who are senior members of staff from different areas of expertise within the legislature that is looking at guiding the development of a standardized, efficient, and technology-enabled workflow processes for the handling of legislative proposals, bills, statutory instruments, with a view to improving operational efficiency and to ensure accountability and also, adequate public engagement. And this is what we are focused on at the moment. There is no timeline, coincidentally. Usually, such task forces will be like 90-day, 120, half year. I was not given very strict timelines. We are trying to see how we can, because we want to understand the ecosystem and try to see how best to go about it in terms of procuring technologies, procuring technical know-how and support, and trying to understand how far we can go, whether we can do it in phases and things like those. That's what I'm actually trying to do with my team. In fact, we have one inaugural meeting on Wednesday this week. And so ongoing is to look at workflow mapping and specifications, and then we will try to see how to work on automation and digital enablement. We will need to work on comparative analysis, look at what is going on in other legislatures, see what has been tested, what works, what does not work. We will also be looking at budgeting and resource requirements, because it's not a cheap enterprise. It's not a cheap area or to venture in. We will also be looking at procurement and planning and implementation, and then later we will be reporting to the Clerk of the National Assembly and the Speaker about whether we proceed with the whole program or half the program or do it in phases or things like those. But we want to try to see that we have a system that will help us to automate. Louis, you were talking about the Akomantoso and or what you're calling the legal document. Here, I think the only institution in Kenya that is using is Kenya Law, which is the National Council for Law Reporting, which is kind of like a reporting agency on cases for the judicial system. It's currently on XML standard for document management for cases and for acts of parliament as well, which then kind of inspired me to look at how then we can extrapolate that to the national legislature and see how we can have it interoperate between us and Kenya law, because all acts of parliament are actually the Kenya law have all acts of parliament in their custody, and the Kenya law acts of parliament are actually official acts of parliament, so to speak, because they do it on behalf of the state law office or the attorney general, and our bills and legislative proposals. We have two key separate stages in our lawmaking process, which is we have legislative proposals, which are kind of ideas and draft proposals by individual legislators without capacity to engage with experts or to have policy direction from the executive. So usually what we do is, as a legislature, we support individual legislators to draft pieces of legislation. At that stage, they are called legislative proposals. And then when they go through the committee system, once they have been reviewed by the portfolio committees, then the speaker will authorize them to be published as bills. So, and the bills then will begin the process of first reading, second reading, going up all the way to assent. We intend, at least as a leader, I will speak for my team and say, I intend to adopt the same standards for the Parliament of Kenya. We are thinking that the Akomantoso system would definitely be the format that we would like to use. Why? Because in our small research, we are still working on it. It appears to me that it is the solution for providing or a good format for the kind of work that we are doing as a legislature. We will also be seeking to benchmark with counterparts. So whatever or whichever legislature you think is kind of through with this system, and yeah, there is evidence that it is working. Of course, I know I have seen across legislatures that there are a few challenges here and there, in particularly for the unique types of legislative processes that are unique to each of the legislatures. But at the end of the day, I think there is always something to learn from each other. We also hope that we would find expert support and partnerships as we go along to try as much as possible to provide Kenya's national legislature, both Senate and the National Assembly, with a system that is going to ensure that our processes are seamless, are efficient, and effective to provide support to the legislators and also to the legislature committees of the Houses of Parliament and the public who are using a lot of our legislative work and documents. Let me end it here so that then we can deal with questions. Thank you very much. I will look forward to a conversation with all of us. Thank you.
All right, thank you. It's very interesting. My first question is just a question for understanding. I'm assuming that your legislative processes are based, or are the origins of the Westminster system, so it's very similar to the UK.
Yes, please.
I've done some work in the UK, and in their case, a lot of the drafting, a lot of the bills originated with government, not with individual members. In your case, it sounded like legislative proposals do come from individual members. Is that right?
Yes, it's right. In fact, 80% of bills and legislative proposals, actually almost 90%, are actually from individual members, and around 10 to 9% from government. Quite unusual.
Yeah, that's in the US it's that way around, but in
Yeah.
the UK it's the other way around.
Ours is a presidential system, but we had an origin of a Westminster system. The new constitution in 2010 changed our system to a presidential system, though we still feel kind of a nostalgia of sorts
Right.
with the previous system. Yeah.
Even the US, the origins to the Westminster system still show even centuries later.
Yeah.
A little bit about the drafting itself. We, as a company, we specialize in legislative drafting, as you may already know.
Yeah.
I'm one of the members of the Akomontozo committee, so we define Akomontozo.
Yeah.
And Akomontozo's origins are in Kenya.
True. I know Flavio.
Okay, Flavio. Yes, I haven't spoken to him in years, but Flavio.
I was working here when Flavio was trying to put together a command torso. I think with UNESA.
Yes, that's right. I used to speak to him a lot. He's since retired
Okay.
to some little town in Italy, but I'm very fond of Flavio. So we support Akomontozo and have spent the last 15 years or so now building our tools around Akomontozo. The drafting that is done are legislative proposals drafted by a formal legal department, or are they drafted by the members themselves? How does that work?
We have a formal legal department with 50 staff.
Okay, cool. All right. And is that part of Parliament or is that part of government?
Only Parliament. In fact, the State Law Office has its own legal counsels who are drafters for the executive, and the ministries also have their own legal counsels and drafters, but they use the Attorney General's office, which is the State Law Office. But for our Parliament, we have 50 staff who are legislative counsel, drafters by profession. For the Senate, we have 42 for the Senate and 50 for the National Assembly.
Okay. The laws themselves, are they statutes or code-based?
They are statutes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you have a consolidation issue, I would imagine.
Yeah. A lot of consolidation issues, yes.
All right. A lot of what you were talking about was focused around workflow and the business processes. Have you given any thought to actually any modernization of drafting?
Actually, it's the reason we are trying to engage as much as possible. I'm in charge of the program. I'm the vision bearer. Our director in charge of legal services is working with me because we wanted to try a legislative drafting system. And I was also looking at one for managing my own processes, but I thought it is better to have one for actually one for both houses instead. That would work to help us with drafting and also with other processes, petitions, questions, statements, on all manner of processes that we have in the legislative services.
Have you considered using Akomontozo for handsets?
We are not yet using Akomontozo for Hansard. I can't quickly remember the name of the provider or the name of the system, but it's a digital Hansard system. I don't know whether it is how it was perhaps picked up by the users, but it doesn't seem to kind of. I think the uptake is very low.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
You did mention that you've given some consideration to using AI with the handset. Is that for digital translation?
Yes. In fact, the conversation across the directorates is to try AI. Again, this is a new area, and so because we are experts in our own field and not IT, we don't feel we have adequate expertise to actually handle these effectively.
Okay, that is a complicated subject.
Yes.
Is the a bilingual legislature, English and Swahili? Is most of the actual procedures done in English or in Swahili?
Actually, it's all in English, except that members can speak in Kiswahili, and they can also introduce motions or ask questions in Kiswahili in writing, or even in the chamber, in the plenary.
Is the legislation required to be presented in both English and Swahili, or is it?
The Constitution does provide that the languages for Parliament is Kiswahili, English, and sign language. But we have not yet started using Kiswahili effectively. So
Okay.
it's actually only in English.
All right. I've done work in legislatures where they have a side-by-side requirement, where in the case that I was working was Hong Kong, where it was English and Chinese, but they had to do them side by side. In the same document, it had to flow down.
Yeah, I see it in Canada too.
Pardon?
I see it in Canada as well.
Yes, yes. And then the question was, which one gets precedence? If there's a difference in language, which one gets precedence?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. Your working language is primarily English.
Yes, and English takes precedence.
Okay, and English does take precedence. Yeah, in Hong Kong it was switching. Although their working language was still technically English, they were switching to, and that was what part of the project was to switch
To Chinese.
To Chinese, which I couldn't read, which made it really hard. Mike, do you have any questions?
Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you. I have a question about how, as a technology leader, you make decisions about where you're going to invest. When you talk about things like efficiency and workflow versus participation, how is it that you sort of decide who gets where the attention and the budget dollars go for projects? How do you decide which ones are most important?
It's a very difficult question. What I was assigned to do is to work with my team to look at priority areas, and we are still trying to think about how best to go about it. What can we afford? What can we afford now? How far can it take us? Can we do it in phases? What does it cost to do it in phases? What does it cost to, have a wholesome arrangement where you put in place a system that provides solution to a majority of the work that we do? It's not an easy question, but I am going to be reporting to the Clerk of the National Assembly about it, and when we are ready, having looked at the options that we may be having.
Yeah, that is a very difficult decisions to make. Also, I'm interested in the requirement for participation. How is it that Kenya measures acceptable levels of participation?
A very good question. In fact, we have a constitutional provision, Article 118 of the Constitution, that provides for public participation and access. And interestingly, that particular section, among other sections of the Constitution, were borrowed from South Africa. And in fact, our jurisprudence is actually Doctors for Life International case, which is a South African case on public participation. And of course, there is further jurisprudence developed in Kenya. Currently, I'm handling a bill here now that is looking at enacting a law on public participation so that it can provide for parameters, the scope of public participation, how much participation is adequate, the processes of participating, what is enough engagement, and things like those. But Doctors for Life International case, for me, is the grander jurisprudence that has been used here.
Interesting. You'd also mentioned using there's some interest, I think, across the board with governments today with AI. A lot of governments are doing experiments. A lot of governments, I think, have been slow to understand the impacts, just like the rest of society. We don't know the impacts of AI yet. A lot of the other governments, though, that we work with are focused, not use the word participation, which I think is a much higher bar than a lot of democracies focus on transparency. So we publish a lot of times the governments, that is the duty. Participation takes it to another level. And the role of AI can be constrained to measuring outputs. But I also would imagine that AI would be looked at as something that could help with participation. At the same time, it may also muddy participation in terms of bots and the ability for AI to do things we don't want it to do. So any learnings that you have thought about there?
Pretty interesting. I have instructions from the clerk of the National Assembly to consider incorporating AI. In fact, a whole paragraph is in the TOR is dedicated to artificial intelligence. So we have instructions to actually incorporate AI in, public participation. It's an area I would like to learn a lot about and to engage experts on it. It's quite new to us, but we believe we can do it incrementally with good learning as we go, without going. Of course, we have a national policy that is trying to, at the beginning, direct how AI is going to be used in the country. But interestingly, people find it pretty easy to just say, let's incorporate AI. I don't think, as you say, it's not that easy. It's not a walk in the park. We will be advising about it because I have instructions about it. We will be advising as to how far we can go with AI, how much can we leverage on it to perhaps, because I see a few legislatures trying AI on committee work, audio services that are kind of broadcasting committee proceedings and transcribing committee proceedings and generating reports on committee proceedings and things like those. I find it a useful tool. But as you say, I don't know how much we can take. Whether in fact bots are going to mess us up midway through our work.
Yeah, I think we're all in the same boat here, trying to figure out how much we can trust it, how much we need to guard against it. We know that the buy or build decision when it comes to AI is not really too much of an option for most of us. Even if we build our own LLM models, we train our own models, we're still building on top of OpenAI for most of the world. And that's true across the world. There's not a lot of options. But with most other tech, how do you approach the buy versus build decision in terms of wanting to own your own destiny and not being subject to the whims of software companies? Do you build a lot of your own tech? How do you think about that that relationship of the build versus buy?
In fact, listening to you, it sounds like a warning to me. Because buy and build, I would prefer build if I had the necessary capacity and technical support. This is an area that we are still very, very weak in Africa, and it will take a long time before we are. Yeah, Kenya is among, we call it this Silicon Savannah. We have a lot of tech here, but it's more on the commercial areas than on these areas. But it's still possible to take advantage of that technical capacity that we have across the board. One thing I would take from you is that we do homework on whether to buy or to build, and whether we will be able to attain capacity to build.
Do you have your own development team?
We do not have our own development team. We are actually relying on a government team.
Yeah, I think the buy versus build is always a difficult decision, especially even things like we're using Google's Meet today, or we might be using Microsoft Teams. Clearly, does not make sense for anybody to build their own video conferencing system. I think the bigger concern is long-term control and being subject to these tech providers, and being able to dismiss them if we want to, having optionality. But I appreciate the response.
Thank you.
We are.
I have one more final question. A lot of what I've heard is a focus on workflow and efficiency, which we hear. I hear a lot from different folks doing modernization. Why is it that efficiency is an important aspect of modernization?
Looking at where we are coming from in Africa, I don't know whether it's even fair to compare legislatures in Africa, but I think Kenya can compare quite easily with South Africa, and the rest of the continent is fairly slower in terms of adapting to technology, and the processes are really manual, slow, convoluted, paper-based. I can go on, and we think looking at the youth and the country that is so aware and so enlightened, sometimes you find the rest of the economy, the rest of the country is ahead in everything that they are doing except your own parliament or judiciary, for example. Yeah.
Okay. So it is about keeping up with policy.
Yes, keeping up with policy.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, and also keeping up with the rest of the country. There's a lot of development going on. You walk into a commercial Safaricom, for example, which is a telephone company, and you find the kind of technology that they are using is so much advanced. You walk into a city county government office to process something, and they are so much advanced. There's a lot going on. It's faster. We went into an e-citizen system where all government services are automated, they're online. You get your driving license within 3 hours. You literally can process anything, including a marriage certificate, pretty fast if you want it.